Hi there, my name is Lucas Weiss, and I am the host of the Weesesports Quarantine Chronicles. For today's episode, I'm joined by Samantha Marks. Samantha is an associate editor at Golf Channel, specializing in digital content. In this episode, I chat with Samantha about her journey into sports media, working at Golf Channel, using social media to cover golf, and the opportunities to produce digital content in the sport. The Weesports Quarantine Chronicles is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So make sure to like, rate, watch, and subscribe to all three of those channels. Now let's get to episode 55 with Samantha Marks on the Weesports Quarantine Chronicles. All right, on today's episode of the Weesports Quarantine Chronicles, I'm joined by Samantha Marks. She is an associate editor at Golf Channel. Sam, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
No worries. And, big fan of your background. You clearly love golf from what I've seen from your background. In starting this interview, obviously this is, coming up to the fourth week now of professional golf coming back at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. I'm just curious from your perspective, Sam, what these last three tournaments have been like for you. Obviously, different changes in the broadcast, but after 3 weeks of watching it, I feel like it's somewhat back to normal that I'm, watching a golf tournament. I'm forgetting about what's happening around us for just a few moments.
Yeah, so it was interesting the way that we kind of went on, the digital side of a media conglomerate. We went kind of from, full speed, however many months ago, 3 months ago now, and then we kind of hit a dead stop. Mm-hmm. The first few weeks of quarantine, if you want to call it whatever you want to call it, we were digging for content, posting anything any player did. Like Bryson posted a random photo on social media. We'd write an article about it just to have something because we didn't have anything really to write about at the time. So it was definitely an adjustment. We had a lot of time off. We had a lot of meetings talking about, what was going to happen, what were we going to do. And then it kind of went from that to relatively full speed again. And there was so much content happening with players having the coronavirus, caddies, players pulling out that were just doing it out of caution. It was kind of hard to keep up. So we kind of went from here, and then we dipped really low, and then we were back up probably even higher in content than we were before. So it's been a great 3 weeks. There's definitely still, progress to be made as far as broadcast with fans and stuff like that. We're still waiting to see the fans back, but as far as things go for us, they're pretty back to normal. It's been interesting definitely to see Jay Monahan kind of spearhead the efforts kind of across all sports. If you really think about it, he was pretty much the first commissioner to go back as full speed as he could. So it's been good for us getting back in the swing of things. So yeah, we're at a good spot.
And, I know you're very active on, social media, tweeting a lot about golf. Or, do you find that, the fans are, really excited to have golf back? Or do you sense that there's a little bit of, while it is exciting to be back, there's also this pandemic happening and, these things are operating at the same time, which can be a little bit concerning?
I think for the most part, from my perspective, this is not an opinion of anybody else, but I think golf, if you were going to have a sport come back, it makes sense that it be one like golf. And I know NASCAR has also come back a little bit. Those sports where you aren't, on a basketball court sweating, rubbing up against other people, that kind of stuff. So it did make sense. And I think a lot of people saw that. And I think a lot of people also saw it, at least when I'm seeing on Twitter, kind of the return to golf was kind of a relief from what was going on in the world. And obviously it hasn't been perfect. Some players have, come down as sick. Fortunately, nobody's been super symptomatic yet, but most people from what I've seen have been very, very thankful that golf is back, very glad to have some kind of sports back in their life. That's been the overwhelming response that we've seen.
So what is your role involved with Golf Channel? I know, there's, a lot of digital aspects to it, but I see that you also write on the website as well. So I guess you're really utilizing a lot of your journalistic skills and background.
Yeah, sure. So I work on the the editorial desk. So it's pretty much anything that has to do with the website is me and my team. So when the writers, will send, if you're familiar with like Rex Hoggard or Will Gray or Ryan Lavner, they'll go to a tournament, while the play is going on. And then afterwards, they'll write content. Pretty much we'll have like one lead item, which will be a longer, more column piece. And then we'll have a bunch of separate blogs or like mini articles pretty much where you write off of one or two quotes that maybe somebody said that was interesting. So they write those on site and then they send it back to us in an email. Pretty much then it's our job from there to get it on the site, get a photo, Photoshop that, put all the interesting and related articles inside and embeds, make sure the leaderboard's in there, post it on the website, put it in the right place, tweet it out. So it's more so managing the content that's coming in from on site. But if there's days like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of a tournament, you're not always going to have somebody on site yet. So it's a lot of watching transcripts and looking for an interesting quote that somebody might have said, and writing off of that to get a more interesting story to keep the content running. We do run the Golf Central handle, which is kind of the more newsy handle, whereas the Golf Channel is more like playful and fun, or at least that's what they're trying to be. So if there's something kind of, I wouldn't say silly, but like not as serious or needs to be taken up time by a writer, that's where me and my coworkers come in and we'll just put something together like just quick and easy to get those like more viral clicks, whereas the column is more people going interested in the story, where the blogs that we're doing are just more punchy headlines, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And, in doing research for this interview, I mean, one story that caught my eye was Phil Mickelson offering dating advice. And it's just like really, it's unique because, you see these golfers, watching them in competition and they're, of course, serious. They want to win. And you see them after the round and they're offering these quotes about how they're doing. But then, when you see that, something like that or another story that's, unique, it allows the fans to peel back the curtain and see who these guys really are. And, a lot of times I feel like golfers are some of the most interesting athletes that offer a lot of really interesting perspectives.
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting because I feel like a lot of that has kind of opened up in the past 2 years or so. I don't really think that many players were tweeting a ton before then. Even if so, it wasn't as much interacting with fans. If you look at Mickelson, you look at Max Homa, you look at Eddie Pepperell, like those kinds of players are really kind of, I wouldn't even say taking advantage of, I'd say like utilizing the opportunity. Ian Poulter tweeting back about that incident on the TV the other day. Mm-hmm. Just little stuff like that. But if somebody doesn't have Twitter or don't follow the right people, you may not have seen it. And that's where the blog comes in to kind of outline, this is where it originated. This was the response, like just something funny to kind of get a funny headline out. Obviously the website is all about clicks. I'm not going to lie to you there, but it is kind of trying to get a punchy headline that will create the most clicks. And I feel like a lot of players nowadays are really giving us the opportunity to have some fun with it, which is what I'm all about. So I love it.
No, it's, all the fun is so much better. And it's interesting that you mentioned that point about how some golfers, it's been a more recent phenomenon that they've really utilized social media. Does it make it then harder or more of a challenge then to attract younger fans to the game when the product is taking a little bit longer to adapt to social media and those digital trends?
I think that we're probably in one of the easiest phases with that right now, because you went through quarantine and people were bored and tweeting, dumb stuff like Bryson, however many minutes long that one time lapse of him was. Like that was weird, but like it was pure awesome golf content. And that's the kind of stuff that maybe an older fan of golf wouldn't appreciate as much as people like us who can then create a meme about it, make a GIF about it, and attach it to something completely unrelated to golf. But then it's funny. And that's where I think that people are really taking advantage of these players on social media and kind of getting their voice out there. There's a lot of funny Twitter golf accounts right now. And I think that that there is a really young space in golf at the moment, and more people are out playing with their friends and seeing what it's all about. And I think going back to our point from before, that's almost even accentuated by the fact that it's one of the only sports competing right now. So I think we're at a pretty good advantage as far as growing the game at this point, with where social media is and where it's going, and then also where the game is and where it's going.
So, obviously, you do a lot of social media stuff, and I've had a few social media people on the podcast, and I'm always just fascinated because I feel like, these people are just masters at, being able to tweet something and just get a lot of, reaction and buzz and engagement. Like, do you know when you tweet something or post something that it's going to be talked about a lot, or is it just like a little bit of hit or miss in terms of the content that you put out there?
So I remember, if you follow me, I've been posting a lot of dating content recently. Yeah. And I remember the first time I posted something like that, I had no idea that it was going to hit kind of the nerve of some people in a good way that it did. And so it's really, I think Twitter is solely about being relatable. You can tweet all the facts in the world and some people simply won't care. But when you strike a nerve with them and they read something and say, oh, wait, I do that too. Or like, oh yeah, like I totally feel like that. Or you need to entice some kind of emotion in them. That's really what Twitter and what social media is about. Because if somebody doesn't see something and have an adverse reaction to it, then it's really not going to stick with them. And so I've noticed that the most impressions, they call it on Twitter, the mentions, the likes, the retweets come from the tweets that are completely out of pocket, like doesn't have to do with anything, but people relate to it. And that's really what people want, is they want to go on social media and feel like they have a community. And whether that comes from me talking about not liking lettuce on a sub sandwich, or that I went on a terrible date with a guy who was an asshole, like it's really hit or miss, but a lot of the times if you're relatable, people will react to it. And so that's kind of what I try to do.
Yeah, and again, like it goes back to pulling back the peel a bit and the curtain, because I feel like people, young journalists or writers in sports media, they go on Twitter and they're just trying to get their feet wet. They may post about a fact, or they're following a tournament or a game, but I feel like when, sometimes you have to, touch a nerve, if you've been, and be a little bit punchy on Twitter, whether it's posting an opinion or talking about a topic or whatnot, to really gain that following and get people on your content. Because like you said, like you may have some great content, but if there's no one watching you, people are just going to go to another account and you just fall by the wayside, just in terms of social media engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the things that kind of helped me gain a very little following, but I have grown a lot in the past year. And I think that one of the things that I don't care about that a lot of other people do is, like, I don't care if I tweet something and it gets 5 likes. Like I don't care. I don't go back and delete it. I know a lot of people in this space who will tweet something and then freak out when it doesn't react the way that it's supposed to. And that's not doing it for fun. Like, that's doing it for other people's approval. And that's not the way to approach it. So yeah, if you think something funny, if nobody else thinks it's funny, then that's their problem. Like, if you think it's funny, put it on your channel. Like, that's all that really matters. And I think that that's something that people who are really into social media, like people our age, it kind of gets lost. Like you're looking for the perfect Instagram photo, or you're looking for the perfect filter, instead of just being more candid, which is something that I really appreciate about Twitter. It's more so a day-to-day kind of live update thing. Whereas Instagram, you post twice in one day. Like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, I can't believe she would post twice in one day. Where Twitter, I'm like, I posted twice in the last minute. Like, it doesn't matter. It's much more candid, which is something that I appreciate. But there's definitely an appreciation for me for just not caring what other people think. And I think that that's something that's important if you want to grow in social media, because there are going to be people who don't like what you say or don't agree, and that's not your problem.
In terms of producing golf content on a variety of different platforms, what do you think are the components that go into producing really stellar and engaging content?
So I think one of the hardest things right now is that if you look at the end of a golf tournament, let's say it's Sunday night, 6 o'clock, and things are coming down the final stretch. For example, DJ shot last week at Travelers where it plugged near the water. He goes to take his shoes off. Everyone's tweeting the same thing at the same time. And that's what I think is hard, because if you follow all the golf media people and all the people who work for Golf Channel and golf.com and Golf Digest and everybody, it's pretty much just repurposing the same content, and you have to figure out a way to stand out. And like I said, be relatable. Like, even if it has nothing to do with golf, or you have a story from a different time where this reminded you of that, that's where you're going to set yourself apart, is in being relatable. Whereas rather than just like filling space or tweeting to tweet, it's not going to really do much. But I have noticed that for myself, the posts with photos attached, or with a GIF attached, or with something attached that's not just text, tend to have more impressions and tend to have more engagements. And I don't know if that's because people glaze over simple text tweets, but it is something that I've noticed in the past. And so I try to take some pictures. They don't have to be perfect, but just posting anything about a round with your friends, or a selfie on the golf course. That's something that when somebody sees a photo, they're more likely to stop than read a long paragraph of text. So that's something that I've seen. I don't know if that really answers your question, but
No, it does. I think because, you're absolutely right. Like, I think, when everyone's talking about the tournament at the same time and it's happening in real time, I mean, there's always this sort of mad dash to explain the moment. And but within 5 minutes, that event becomes old, and you have to sort of rethink about another way to present it. And I think that the beauty of Twitter now is it's just not text, right? And look, sometimes text works. Like, if you offer like a really unique stat that no one else has, people will like it. But in general, photos, videos, GIFs, memes, they generate more buzz. And I think
they definitely do. One thing to that point as well that I forgot to mention was, the more that you can post something that other people will reply to. So whether that's even just a question or a poll or something stupid you think somebody will have something to say about, even if it's an argument. If I tweet something and you reply to it, all of your followers then see my tweet. And I don't feel like a lot of people on Twitter realize that. The more you can reply, the more you can get replies, the wider spread your audience is going to be. So it's not always about just posting a pretty photo, to get likes. It's more so about, if I post a photo of me on the golf course, I would, instead of saying something like, out for 18 today, I might say like, anybody plan on playing this weekend? And then people feel like you're talking to them. And that's what, like I said before, that I referenced, people want community. And that's why they follow people on golf Twitter, because they have something in common with them. So that's also something to look at as well, phrasing things differently in order to get a different response.
Yeah, like, I think, we're all trying to find, communities on sports Twitter. And I think that point gets a little understated about engaging your followers. Like, I mean, you have over 9,000 followers, so you're doing a great job, by the way, and, for building that. And I think a lot of people are also trying to build that, but they just sort of tweet, but then that's it, right? I feel like by replying and getting replies and engaging with those repliers, like, you then just continue to build that community and just get noticed, because it just goes back to the fact, like, getting eyeballs on your stuff means that to an employer that may hire you for doing social media, like, dang, like, this person can do a really good job of engaging with a large audience.
I think that's something else that I try to do, and I think is really important, you shouldn't be following people whose content you're not gonna like and reply to. Like what, like what are you there for anyway? So I try to make a conscious effort to, if I see something that really made me laugh, respond with like a laughing gif or like a funny gif or a funny meme or something to let somebody know that like, wow, I really thought that was funny. And again, that helps the engagements for you as well, because then your tweet goes underneath theirs. So it's not always about replying or getting replies for yourself. It's about getting replies for them as well, because then it becomes a thread. Twitter is really weird, but it is definitely a great platform for as timely as stuff as golf happens. So yeah, I mean, I don't have all the answers for sure, but just little things that I've seen in the past year that have helped me go from like 1,000 to almost 10. So
You've had the chance to cover some, pretty big golf tournaments, whether it's the Players Championship or Tiger Woods' Masters win last year in 2019. What are those tournaments just like from your, role's perspective? Because as people know, like it's a week-long event. It's not just like a hockey game or a basketball game where you're there and you're out in a night. You're on site for an entire week. So that's a whole layer of trying to figure out new ways to produce engaging and compelling content. Obviously, what happens in the course does that alone, but you also got to come up with creative ways to engage your followers.
yeah, so one of the most interesting things that I don't think that readers think about is what happens before. What happens before the writers get on site? What happens the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before? It's Sunday night of the week before the Masters, and we're already writing about the Masters because it's that preview content, and people are going to look now, especially for more betting content. Who do the writers think are going to do well? Who are they writing about? That if it's, does Tiger Woods have a chance this year, or is it, can Jordan Spieth ever win another Masters? People are interested in that, and I could argue that a Monday before a tournament is more busy than a Saturday or Sunday, solely because there's so much content that we're trying to get out in order to push the stories, in order to kind of prepare the golf world about what's going on more so. How will the person who won last week play this week? Will they, be able to transfer it over? How about the guy who won last year? There's so many storylines that you have to follow. And if you look at something like the Masters last year, it's pretty incredible the way that Tiger moves the needle. I know that a lot of people say that, but it was like full go for like 10 days straight for everyone on our team. And that's very, very rare. Like today we had 3 different people working in shifts throughout the day because it's Wednesday and there's not a ton of content coming out today. But when it was the Masters, it was 6 of us sitting in the office grinding, like not a single second could go by without some other piece of content that needed to be written. So it's pretty amazing to see the difference in that. If you work versus you look at like the week of the Rocket Mortgage, it's obviously going to be different than the week of the Masters when Tiger wins, but just even as far as scheduling purposes is something that you don't really think about when it comes to majors. My team works from home all the time, like constantly. I have a desk, but I don't even think there's anything in it. And during the majors, we do go into the office to have a better sense of communication than a Slack chat or a Microsoft Teams chat. So it is very different on the week of a major or the week of the Players or an event that Tiger won last year, stuff like that. It is interesting how different it is for sure.
You mentioned how Tiger moves the needle, and of course, just look back to the Masters on Sunday when he won. It was millions of people talking about this historic moment. But how do you balance that with the other golfers that are on the tour? Just to try to give attention to them, because obviously you want the most eyeballs on your content, and Tiger drives that. But there's also these other golfers on the tour that also have good stories.
Sure. I think that when Tiger plays, it is the story.
Mm-hmm.
After going so long without playing, after going through what he's both put himself through and gone through in his life, when he plays, knowing the capabilities that he has on the golf course, it's the story. Whether he withdraws, whether he misses the cut, whether he makes the cut and is in the final group, that is what people want to see. There's very few people who come into our Twitter mentions on Golf Central and say, like, there has been a few, but there are very few that say, why don't you just call it the Tiger Channel? Well, when he plays, like, the majority of people, that's what they want to see. So it is a little bit of a balancing act when you have, like last year's Masters, you have the Brooks, Rory, Phil, JT, you've got everybody kind of in the top in the same tournament. But ultimately, Tiger was the one who came out on top, and there were very few pieces written about, what about Francesco Molinari? You know what I mean? It was written, but you have to think of, as far as us, like I said, it is about getting clicks. It is about producing the best content that will get the most readers. And that is what gets it. No way to go around it. Like, Tiger is who people want to read about. He's who I want to read about. So I think that most real golf fans get that if they've been around a while and were there kind of through the thick and the thin of Tiger.
Other than Tiger, like, who are the golfers that move the needle in your eyes? And is it always correlated with where they are in the rankings or how many majors they have, or is it just someone with a big personality?
I don't think it has to be someone with a big personality at all. You look at someone like Brooks Koepka, who doesn't really say much at all, but he, posted about his girlfriend giving him a haircut, and that got like the most views in a long time that we had on the site over quarantine. It doesn't have to be somebody big in order to entice people to want to read it. I think that especially during quarantine, it was easier to produce that content about anyone because people would read anything golf related at that point because they were, missing it. But I would say at this point where we stand right now in golf, Bryson has a lot to do with the conversation. Might be a little self-enticed, like he's kind of doing that to himself. But for what it is, I mean, it's great content. Like, people can knock him and say, oh, he's doing that for what? Or like, oh, he's just doing it to get attention. Well, okay, here's your attention because we're going to write about it. You know what I mean? Like, he's a great quote. So is Rory. So are people like Thomas and Spieth, and like Webb Simpson's a great quote as well, even from the other week. So there's not many people there's nobody really that we don't want to write about, but there are people who give the better story and can kind of elaborate on topics better. And so as of late, I would definitely say that Bryson is one of those people, like we said before, has kind of opened up on social media and given us kind of a glimpse into this weird, whatever he's doing with his life and his body. But it is interesting, and it's going to keep people coming back for the next story. So I would say him right now for sure.
What are your thoughts on the diet? It reminds me of Michael Phelps a bit, like what he used to do before swimming, but this is now for golfing. So it's like crazy.
Yeah, I don't know about that. He's so funny in the fact that he's been very open about it all. And I thought it was hilarious what was the first week? I guess it was 3 weeks ago now. We kind of all saw him for the first time, like on TV at a golf tournament. And that was the same week that Gary Woodland, they had said that Gary Woodland had lost 20 pounds. Now, if you look at society as a whole, like, one of those things, gaining 20 pounds or losing 20 pounds, is going to be much more praised than the other thing. Yet nobody cared at all about Gary Woodland losing 20 pounds. Literally no one cared. Everyone was like, oh, Gary lost 20 pounds, but Bryson's fat now. Like, that's all that anybody cared about. And I was looking into a good question. I listened to the Shotgun Start podcast, and they posed a good question. If anyone else did that, what Bryson did, would we care? Like, he is so weird that, like, it's almost like it really fit for him to do it. And the fact that he did, and is, like, still going with this, story of whatever the hell he's been up to, is really very on brand for him to do something very out of pocket like this. And I don't think it would have enticed the same reaction if it would have been somebody like, I don't even know, Kevin Na. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it would have produced the same reaction.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because, I live just north of Toronto, and the Toronto Raptors, of course, are, big here. And Marc Gasol, who's the center for the Raptors, posted a photo on Instagram, and he had lost a lot of weight. And it was big for Raptors Twitter, but not as much for the entire NBA. But then you have a guy like Bryson, and it just gives a credit to the brand that Bryson is, perpetuating, that it just generates a lot of buzz and a lot of conversation. So it's just really interesting. And obviously, like, his bombs off the tee, it's just anytime he's just on the screen, it's just exciting to watch. And, hopefully it continues from that sense.
That's the thing. I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, and I've seen it on Twitter too. You can't really knock what he's doing because it's working. I mean, he's come in the top 10 of his last however many events, top 5s recently. I mean, he's not missing cuts, knock on wood, but whatever he's doing has some kind of positive effect on him, whether that's mental or it is physical the way that he claims it is. I think that whatever he's doing, he's making it work for himself. And you can't, I mean, what works for him isn't going to work for you. My swing doesn't look like your swing. It's not, you don't need to go out and drink 6 protein shakes a day to hit it like Bryson, but it helps him, and that's great. So I don't really think there's anything that you can't knock him. You know what I mean?
I want to end the conversation by, you of course are a proud alum of Arkansas Razorbacks golf team, and you played golf for them, and then you took a job in Colorado Springs being a reporter. And I'm just curious, Sam, for young journalists and broadcasters who are looking to get started, how important was that experience for you moving out to Colorado to learn the ropes of the trade that helped you prepare for, your stop right now at Golf Channel?
Yeah, I think it was extremely important. And it's important for me, it was important to utilize the skills that I learned in college right away. I didn't really I knew I wasn't going to go pro. I knew that wasn't really something that I wanted to do. But I knew what I wanted to do was be on TV and tell stories. And so I went full force into that. I moved out to Colorado the day after graduation. I was on TV the next day. I had everything lined up perfectly. Now, did it end up being exactly what I wanted to do long term? No, but now I can always say that I have that experience. If if a company needs me to go out and shoot video content and edit video content, that's something that I did every day for 3 newscasts for a year and a half. It's something that was very beneficial to me. I don't think I don't think everybody needs to get into broadcast journalism, but if that is something that you want to do, it's a very important step, especially to be in a small market and have to fend for yourself. It's not like you're in Chicago, New York, or LA where you have people doing your makeup and people shooting your stories for you and stuff like that. It's very different. You're working a lot of hours for not a lot of money. And it was a very important step in my career solely just to have the experience. And I don't really think that I realized it at the time. It was more so like, oh man, like this is so much work. But ultimately it's going to end up helping me get more opportunities where I can even use more of my skills in the future. So very thankful for my time there, thankful for my time here at Golf Channel. And yeah, we're just trying to create the best content out there.
Last question for you, Sam, and I usually ask this of my sports media guests. Do you have any memorable stories or interactions with golfers when you in your time at Golf Channel?
I would say the most memorable person that I've met, ironically, was Gary Woodland. We met at the Honda, was 2 years ago now, at the Honda Classic down at PGA National. And I went down to help write with Randall Mell, one of our writers. And he was just so caring, so made me feel like the most important person in his life at the moment. I went up to him and I was asking him, I don't even remember what the story was about. And I went up to him and I said, hey Gary, Samantha from golfchannel.com, do you have a second? And he was like, oh, hey, great to see you. He didn't know me, but he, patted me on the back and was like, great to see you. How are you? How are things? And we had a great talk. And at the end, he was like, I'll see you next week. You know, like just very, some people can be very like, yeah, okay, like let's get this over with. But I will always definitely remember like how he was treating me and also the other media there. Did I ever doubt that about him? No, but it was very cool to see how personable he was. So he definitely has a fan in me after that moment for sure.
Samantha Marks, she is an associate editor at Golf Channel. Lots of great stories, advice, and wisdom, particularly on social media and creating content. Sam, thanks so much for joining me today on the Weesports Quarantine Chronicles.
Thanks so much. See you later.